So if you've just been diagnosed with the MTHFR gene mutation and you have no idea where to start, this is the video for you. A lot of us find out that we have the MTHFR gene mutation. We end up listening to long, complicated podcasts that don't give us direct, actionable advice. So here what I'm going to do is lay out a foundational plan or protocol that consists of diet, supplements, and lifestyle interventions to help you thrive with MTHFR and make your life a little simpler. Hey there, I'm David Delgado, integrative health practitioner, but more importantly, fellow traveler with you on this journey towards optimal methylation. I've been living with the MTHFR gene mutation, my whole life, but it wasn't until about the age of 25 that I found out that it was responsible for a lot of the debilitating symptoms that I had, including brain fog, chronic fatigue, this low-level anxiety that I constantly felt, a depression that was sort of an undercurrent throughout my life, and many other things. Conventional medicine really wasn't able to help me at all. And at the end of the day, I found this little tiny thing on a genetic test that I took called MTHFR C677T. And I followed that trail into a deep rabbit hole of content with lots of books, amazing doctors and researchers out there, but it was really hard to follow. And so here, what I'm going to lay out for you today is simply the protocol that I wish I had at the outset of my journey. If you want to learn a little bit more about my story and how I got into this work, you can go ahead and check out the video here. And if you want more detailed explanations of what the MTHFR gene actually is and what the implications are, go ahead and check out my playlist called MTHFR FAQ. But for today, we're going to be laying out the foundational protocol that most of us really should be starting with when we find out we have MTHFR or we are ready to begin taking a more structured approach to optimizing our methylation. All right, so next I'm going to give you the specific dosages and amounts for each of the top nutrients that you're going to need to start to optimize your methylation. How you go about doing this is totally up to you. Some people want to do individualized supplements, basically measure to the exact dose. That's one approach. Other people want to go entirely using dietary sources, so relying entirely on food. And then some people just want a kind of catch-all methylation supplement that really does a lot of the heavy lifting for them. That's totally up to you. I've included these dosages, the amounts, my recommended supplements, lifestyle interventions, and more in the Methylation Mastery 101 PDF. You can find that in the description below. All right, let's go ahead and get into the dosages now. So the first one we're going to discuss is riboflavin, vitamin B2. So this one isn't talked about as much, but you're going to need 5 milligrams per day. And what this actually does is it helps the MTHFR gene actually produce methylfolate. So that's going to be the first one on the list. The next one is going to be 500 milligrams of trimethylglycine. That's going to be taken twice a day. And what this is going to do is mitigate the effects of having a lower level of methylfolate. It has some other benefits as well, but for now, just know 500 milligrams of trimethylglycine taken twice a day, morning and evening would work just fine. Next up is going to be creatine. So most people know creatine is something that you would do to boost your gains in the gym to make your body a little bit more anabolic. It also has a lot of benefits in terms of enhancing cognition and in this case, methylation as well. So you're going to be taking 5 grams of creatine per day. So that's pretty easy. This one I definitely recommend going the supplement route. It's very, very hard to do this through dietary sources alone. All right, next up is going to be one that we hear about a lot. It's going to be folate or 5-MTHF, so 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. Once again, you absolutely want to avoid folic acid if you are going the supplement route. I imagine if you've watched even one video on MTHFR, you already know this, but you want to have either methylfolate, 5-MTHF, sometimes maybe folinic acid, depending on the person. My recommendation is simply to start with the 5-MTHF, so methylfolate. And then if you do not tolerate methylated B vitamins, then there are additional options for you. But the majority of people do tolerate them. So that would be my starting point. In terms of dosages, you want to have somewhere between 400 to 600 micrograms, which is labeled as M CG on most labels per day. When it comes to dietary sources, you want to spread out your methylfolate or your folate throughout the day. So what does that look like? It means maybe adding 2 handfuls of spinach into your smoothie in the morning, and then you take your methylation supplements in the afternoon. So you want to spread that out so that your MTHFR gene, that your methylation pathways are always being supported with its primary fuel, which is going to be that high quality folate in addition to these other synergistic nutrients. Next up is glycine. Once again, this is sort of an unsung hero of the methylation pathways, and I recommend 3 grams of glycine per meal. Once again, this is similar to folate in the sense that you want to spread it out throughout your day instead of taking, let's say, 10 grams in the morning. And what this is doing is helping to stabilize methylation throughout the day. It helps stabilize your mood. So for those of you that, kind of like me, suffered from social anxiety, from depression, from mood swings, any of that, the consistent source or dosing of glycine is going to be really helpful. So last but not least, let's talk about B6 and B12. I'm going to go ahead and start with B12. And both of these are going to be a little bit dependent on which variant of the MTHFR gene mutation you actually have. So for B12, if you have a mild deficiency, I would say that 1,000 to 2,000 micrograms, 1 to 2 milligrams, is a good starting point for most people. If you have a more severe deficiency, then going up to 5,000 micrograms or 5 milligrams is going to be a good start. And beyond that, I would really talk to a functional medicine provider or your health coach or someone that's guiding you through this process. Of course, in terms of the source of vitamin B12, you want to avoid cyanocobalamin or any of these kind of cheap, shortcut, synthetic forms of vitamin B12. These are not going to do you any favors if you have compromised methylation. Instead, you want to opt for something like methylcobalamin. Of course, if you can't tolerate methyl donors, that is another story altogether. And there are supplements that actually cover those who do not support methyl donors, but still need to optimize their methylation. You can check those out in the description below. I have links in my on my page that is dedicated to MTHFR supplements. So in terms of vitamin B6, once again, in terms of mood enhancement, this is one of those unsung heroes. And the form of vitamin B6 that you want is P5P, so pyridoxal 5-phosphate. So that's going to be what you are looking for. It usually goes under the name P5P. In terms of the amounts, most people are going to benefit from 25 to 50 milligrams. That's going to be a pretty good starting point for most people. And then for those who are deficient, you could go up to 100 milligrams daily. Once again, I recommend doing that with or under the guidance of a functional medicine practitioner or a health coach. Hey there, before we move on to the next chapter, go ahead and like and subscribe if you're getting value from this video and you want more content like this with simplified functional medicine and spiritual protocols for busy empaths like you. All right, so in terms of dietary sources, I'm going to be listing out a lot of different foods, including the dosages, the weight of the foods as well that you can start using. And I'm going to be referring to my notes because it's a lot of different types of foods. Once again, all this information is in the Methylation Mastery PDF. You can find it in the description below, but let's get to it. So for riboflavin, remember for supplementation, you want those 5 milligrams per day. Of course, you can do that through dietary sources. You can do that through mixing and matching a couple different sources. That includes 28 grams of liver, 56 grams of kidney, heart, or almonds. Yes, you heard that correct. Kidney, heart, or almonds. Probably have never heard those 3 foods in the same sentence. 200 grams of red meat, cheese. I personally don't do dairy or seafood at all, but I recognize that's not the case for others. Eggs, salmon, mushrooms, seaweed, sesame, wheat germ, or wheat bran. So you have a lot of options to get you to those 200 grams, which is really not a lot. But it's really about getting this consistently. In terms of the riboflavin supplementation, I would say a liquid one is probably the best thing to go with. Okay, next is going to be TMG trimethylglycine, which sounds like it's glycine, but it's not. It's completely different actually. And choline. Choline is going to be very beneficial for your brain health as well. Many of us with compromised methylation do suffer from cognitive symptoms like poor memory, brain fog, just general malaise, not really feeling as sharp. So this is going to be very, very helpful. So for choline, you can do 1 tablespoon of lecithin, 40 grams of beef liver, 44 grams of veal liver, 62 grams of turkey liver, 71 grams of chicken liver, 143 grams of salmon, 135 to 285 grams of most meat, fish, or shellfish, 172 grams of flax seeds. I did not forget for our plant-based community as well. 185 grams of pistachios, quinoa, amaranth, or pinto beans, 215 grams of pumpkin or squash seeds or cashews, 250 grams of pine nuts, edamame, buckwheat, sunflower seeds, peanuts, or almonds. In terms of getting your trimethylglycine, you can either go for 24 grams of quinoa, 25 grams of wheat germ, 37 grams of wheat bran, 44 grams of canned beets, 83 grams of dark rye flour, or 105 grams of frozen spinach. So you do have a lot of different options. And once again, you can mix and match. I just provide the exact weights just so if you want to be exacting, if you want to be very methodical, you can absolutely do that. However, you really don't need to get too neurotic with this. I suggest learning to measure your food out in terms of handfuls or some other intuitive format so it doesn't become a form of neurosis. So when it comes to creatine, once again, I just recommend using a supplement. In order to get those 5 grams of creatine, you're going to need to consume 2 to 3 pounds of meat per day, which is not recommendable for most people. In addition to that, when you consume that much animal protein, your glycine needs to increase. So for every 100 grams of protein, let's say if you surpass 100 grams of protein, you're going to need to add 3 more grams of glycine. So instead of that 9 grams per day, you're going to be at something more like 12, maybe even 15, depending on how much animal protein you are consuming. When it comes to folate, there's a lot of different ways to do it in terms of getting, the recommended amounts. But really you want to have 2 to 3 100-gram servings of liver, legumes, or leafy greens per day. You're going to just go ahead and add 1 more serving if you are pregnant or lactating. I share, the exact weights mainly just so that if you want to be very methodical about this and weigh your food and dose it, you absolutely can. I recommend creating a system that is a little bit more intuitive. So measuring your spinach in terms of handful, in terms of your nuts, starting to get a gauge for how much liver or meat amounts to those 200 to 300 grams. So just getting a clear sense of that really mitigates the perfectionism and neurosis that one can start to have around their food intake. So when it comes to glycine, since we're on the topic of glycine, probably my favorite way to get glycine is through bone broth. There are glycine powders, there's gelatins, there's collagens, all that kind of stuff. But I feel 1 cup of beef bone broth in particular is a great way to get your glycine. In terms of vitamin B12 and B6, there are many foods that can provide this, and I'm going to provide exact dosages in a moment. This is going to be particularly essential for those of you that have the C677T, especially if it is homozygous. You really want to monitor your B12 and B6 dietary intake in addition to that supplementation. So here it is. So for lean beef that is cooked, you're going to want to have 85 grams, which is about 3 ounces. Okay. That's going to lead to about 2.1 micrograms of B12. Next up is going to be beef liver. I know I've mentioned organ meats. I understand that is not that common. For those of us that are not confident in cooking organ meats or just don't want to do it, find it gross, whatever, there are amazing organ supplements. You just have to be mindful of some of the histamine challenges that are inherent to consuming dried foods like organ meats. So that's another option. I do have one that I recommend, and I've included in the PDF, and you can also find it in the description below. So for beef liver, you're going to want to do 85 grams. Once again, about 3 ounces. Sardines cooked in oil, 85 grams, 3 ounces. That's going to be 7.6 micrograms of of B12. Salmon cooked, if you look at 3 ounces, that's going to be 4.8 micrograms, so 200% of your daily value. Trout is going to be 85 grams for 3 ounces. That's going to lead to 5.4 micrograms. Still really good. Tuna, I honestly can't recommend it, but it does have a good amount of B12 content as well. But because with the MTHFR gene, you're just way more susceptible to heavy metal toxicity. I really can't get behind anyone with MTHFR eating tuna, even on a semi-regular basis. So I kind of X that one out. And of course, eggs, the simple, easiest thing to cook, honestly, and such a great thing to master if you're in the early stages of your cooking journey. About 2 large eggs has 1.1 micrograms, so that's almost half of your daily value, or half of your daily intake for vitamin B12. So all of these are great sources. And don't forget, I did not forget our plant-based friends. I was personally vegan for many years. Because of my MTHFR gene mutation, I have switched to an omnivore diet. And so in that case, I think nutritional yeast provides about 2.4 micrograms per tablespoon, which is pretty amazing. So definitely don't ignore nutritional yeast, even if you're not vegan. It's a great thing to add to eggs or to other kind of otherwise omnivorous dishes. Okay, so in addition to those nutrients that I had mentioned earlier, here are just some kind of high-level tips for MTHFR from a dietary perspective, or from a nutrition perspective. The first one is to eat nose to tail. I've mentioned liver and a lot of different types of foods that most people are not accustomed to eating. In other cultures, eating nose to tail is very normalized, and there is a reason for that. It's very nutrient dense. So you could basically use the bones, make a bone broth. You can eat organ meats in a safe and hygienic way. You can consume organ supplements. So there are many ways to achieve this, but eating a diverse range of animal protein as opposed to just eating muscle meat, which is what we're accustomed to, especially here in the US. Next is diversifying your carbohydrates amongst legumes, vegetables, high quality starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes, ancient grains, all that stuff. All that's going to be very helpful in terms of helping you really achieve those nutritional benchmarks on a daily basis. And then the last one is going to be just to eat a wide variety of vegetables, having a rainbow color on your plate. And as a general rule of thumb, you still want half of your meals to be vegetables. There's a lot of talk around protein intake, and I've mentioned a lot of animal proteins here, but really we're talking relatively small but consistent amounts. We're talking 3, 4, 5 ounces, 2 to 3 eggs, something like that. We aren't talking about a 10, 12 ounce steak here. So just keep that in mind. Like, even though these are very nutrient dense foods, you can absolutely overdo them. And it's really about that consistent daily action and being mindful of incorporating them into your life rather than basically overdoing them. So just keep that in mind. All right. And then in terms of foundational supplements, I mentioned the specific supplement dosages that you want to have earlier, but you probably want to have a foundation to build upon for these methylation specific supplements. So what I recommend is a functional medicine multivitamin. I use something called the Daily Nutritional Support. I put that in my smoothie most days. I've linked that in the description below. There are many good brands for that, whether that be Equilife, Metagenics, Thorne, Pure Encapsulations. They all have a functional medicine multi. Next would be vitamin D3, and I recommend 35 IUs per pound of body weight. This is going to be especially helpful for those with hormone imbalances, low mood, compromised immune system, and so much more. So this is something I recommend testing on a regular basis. Next is going to be, this is especially important for those of you with anxiety, depression, elevated homocysteine, etc., is going to be a high EPA omega-3. And I personally prefer doing a liquid because the absorption is just that much higher. You get much higher doses than in many of the capsules. Next, and I mentioned this a couple other times, is going to be that organ complex. So these dried organ meats that really streamline the process of getting the nutrition from organs. because organs are hard to source and they're kind of hard to cook. But if you have a great butcher near you, if you have a good source, whether it be online or local, for organ meats, I highly recommend learning to cook them. Next is going to be a detox support like a liposomal glutathione, an N-acetylcysteine type product. This is going to be very beneficial, especially in the beginning when you are really assisting your body in this detoxification process, because many of us with MTHFR have accumulated heavy metals. We have accumulated stuff in our body that doesn't belong there, but our detoxification pathways have been compromised for a long time. If you're interested in the top detoxes for MTHFR, I have a separate video about that there where I go into the specifics of the top 4 cleanses and detoxes that you need, whether you have MTHFR or not. Next would be magnesium. Many of us with MTHFR have a tired and wired pattern, like we're tired throughout the day and then we're a little bit anxious and can't go to sleep at night. Very, very common. So getting a magnesium blend that allows you to really dial down the nervous system at night is absolutely indispensable. And then the last one is more of a kind of sprinkle on the top, which would be any mood enhancement supplements. So something like Anima Mundi Happiness, something like Adrenal Soothe, herbs like ashwagandha, Rhodiola rosea, functional mushrooms. All of these can be very beneficial, but only when you build upon a very, very powerful foundation, of course. So in terms of personalization and then making these protocols your own, once again, this is a foundational protocol. This is where you start with these dosages, with these amounts, and then you upload your 23andMe or Ancestry.com info. You can use a program like Self-Decode to start to individualize your protocol, individualize your methylation protocol specific to you. So that's something I highly recommend. But before you do any of that really fancy stuff, really nail down the basics. Start with this. Just really make sure that your diet, your supplementation is on point, that you're getting the dosages that are best practices and recommended. For those of you that cannot tolerate methylated B vitamins, there are options for you. So go ahead and swap some of the recommendations that I've made in my PDF and in this video with those that are methyl free, whether it be folinic acid, whether it basically be the alternatives for B12 and others. You can go ahead and use that. And then, of course, I would lab test on a regular basis to make sure that your homocysteine, your B6, your B12, your folate are all in good shape. All right, well, that's it for today. Once again, we have the Methylation Mastery 101 PDF in the description below so that you can follow that for more detailed guidance. I have links to everything in the description and in that PDF. So please check it out. I have many more videos on MTHFR, on explaining what it is, what to do about it, some more nuanced protocols. But this is really the powerful starting point for you if you are getting started with optimizing your methylation and getting your supplement and your diet in, lined up in a way that it optimizes your methylation pathways. This does require some strategic thinking. However, it doesn't have to be excessively complicated. My hope is that I'm paying it forward, that I'm just sharing with you the things that would have made my healing journey a lot shorter. So with that, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you move through this life with ease. I hope to see you in the next episode. Please like and subscribe if you want more content like this. See you soon. Bye.